Hey there, it's your boy Foxy, back for more relationship stories. Update. My mom bragged about how she kept my dad out of my life, and I grew up thinking he abandoned me. Original post. I, 19 female, grew up with a single mom. Growing up, I was always told my father abandoned me. It happened when I was around 10 when I asked my mom about my dad, and she told me straight up that he abandoned me. I cried so much that day it's not a joke. As I grew older, I hated him, even though I never met him. I thought about if he came back how I would scream at him, ruin him, or attack him for leaving. Last week my mom and I was at her friend's house. I went along because I'm friends with her friend's daughter. Well, fast forward, I came downstairs and heard my mom say my name. She revealed my dad's name and said, "It's easy to keep a father out of a kid's life like what I did with Lena's father after I found out he cheated on me." She was also talking about how pathetic he looked when he pleaded with her to stay in my life. She also added how she used his old addiction against him in court. So, from how I understand, he was sober before I was born. I made contact with my bio dad as soon as we got home. The next morning I got a reply and he asked for my number so we can talk. The first thing my dad said when he called was apologize. He told me it's all his fault. After talking with him for a while, I told him I'd love to have a relationship with him. He lives not far from our city, about 2-hour drive. As for my mom, while she was at work, I sent her a text telling her about what I heard, and I'll be cutting off contact with her for a while, and probably forever. Edit. So I forgot to mention, I inherited my uncle's house after he died, and that is when mom started acting weird. She believed that the house belonged her, and fought with my grandfather over it, but he put his foot down and told her it's my house. Secondly, when I turned 18 and moved into the house, my mom came along. I didn't want to live with her again, but she told she'll cut off my college fund. Well, now my grandpa told me he'll pay for my college. Also, more about my mom. When my parents split up, my grandfather told her he doesn't support her decision to keep my father out of my life, but she told him then that he will never see me either. Also, my mom acts like my house belongs to her, and always told me, technically it's my house, and should have been given to me. Another thing is that, my father quit drugs long before he met her. My mom confessed to this. Also, I was told by my grandpa not long after telling my mom she is no longer in my house, that my dad loved me with all his heart when I was only a couple of months old. Apparently, my dad almost made it impossible for others to hold me. Next thing is that my dad did confess to cheating. I already asked my mom to explain her side, and she said yes, he did quit the bad habit long before he met her. However, that's about it. So far, all she wants is for me to forgive her. I did ask my dad for his side, but he hasn't replied yet, but told me he'll call me later. Now for the top comments before reading the update. That is an awful thing to do to your kids. I'm glad you made contact with your dad. It's never too late to work on your relationship with him. If my husband and I ever got divorced, I wouldn't keep him from the kids. That would punish my kids who are innocent. I don't get women like this. As a mother, I put my kids first always, and what is best for them. My ex and I now live far enough apart that a plane ride is necessary for us to get our child back and forth. There have been times, however, that he has flown down here for special events regarding our child. He either sleeps on my couch or in our child's room. He will hang out with us while my husband and I cook dinner, and often does all the cleanup after. He has even told my husband and I to go out on a date while he stays home with all of the kids. Our divorce wasn't easy at first, but we make it work for our kids. Unless their father was an active addict and are wanted for horrific crimes, there is no reason to keep a willing father out of a child's life. As a child of divorced parents who put my sister and I first, I want to say thanks on behalf of your kids. Divorce is never easy and it's hard on the kids, but seeing your parents put you first means the world. OP, I know Reddit is quick to say lawyer up, but this is a situation where one would be a good idea. You need to make sure that you protect your assets, as well as make sure that your mom hasn't been trying to pull shady stuff without your knowledge and consent. For example, either forging your signature or getting you to sign something under the guise of it being something else. Her saying technically it's my house when it legally isn't, who knows what other boundaries she's pushing. I would definitely get legal advice. I hate parents that keep the kids away from the other parent just to spite them. Unless the other parent is a dealer or works for the cartels or crap like that, no excuse for it. My ex-wife did that to her first husband, kept the 2 kids from him, and he would beg her to see them. But no, despite him, she kept them from him, and she would tell the kids, "Oh, your father is out having fun with his new wife and has no time for y'all," which was BS. And sadly, the kids grew up hating the man. It wasn't until a few years after we divorced when I ran into him at a restaurant downtown, and I told him I hated how she did that to him, and it was unfair and cruel because he missed them growing up. Last I heard, he and the two kids reconciled, and they apologized for hating him since they never knew the truth. I hope the kids cut her off. Yes, my auntie did this to my uncle after they split up as well. Would tell him that the kids were sick and couldn't go to his place, or that they didn't want to see him that week. Then she would turn around and say to them, as they sat waiting with their bags for their dad to come, who didn't show up because he was told not to, she would say, "See, your dad doesn't want you," or something. While he has gone on to be involved in his son's life when he was older. Unfortunately, his relationship with his daughter never recovered. She still believes her mother's toxic lies and refuses to let her dad try to reconcile and be in her life. It's really sad. My other auntie and uncle divorced because she gambled their house away. Many years later, when she was no longer a gambling addict, they actually got back together. And yet we were the black sheep of the family and left out of things because we were poor. And now for the update. First of all, thanks so much for the support. I'm surprised my post got so much support. I cannot thank you enough. Anyway, I met up with my dad at a restaurant today as he thought it would be better to talk in person. I was shocked when I saw him. He looks to be in great shape. However, I could tell he was crying. When I approached him, he pulled me into a hug and apologized a few more times for not being there, and that he really wants to fix things while he has a chance. We started talking, and there was much more to the story than my dad just being a cheater. So here it goes. During my mom's pregnancy, she constantly put my dad down. Like she would tell him, "You should be happy you're with me and not some unimportant witch," or "You're not good enough for me, I'm just with you for the sake of our child." My dad said that he thought it was just her pregnancy hormones, but then it got worse after I was born. Her ego was through the roof, but what really took the cake was when my mom said, "It's such shame my daughter will probably grow up to be a failure like her father." I was taken aback by this. I asked my dad if that's the reason he cheated, and he said no. He should have just called off the wedding, but instead he cheated. He apologized a few more times and told me he loves me, and that he never forgot about me. And when I texted him for the first time, he couldn't believe it was me until he saw my profile picture. We both cried for a while until our breakfast arrived. Now onto my mom. I just want to add that my mom started threatening me after I told her she is getting evicted. At first it went from pathetic apologies to full-on threats. She told she'll ruin me if I abandon her, make sure I lose everything. Anyways, after speaking to my dad, I wanted to see if my mom will confirm it. And she did with no shame. She admitted it like it was a freaking achievement, with no remorse may I add. Then she went back to sweet talks and then back to threatening me. Someone told me I should see if I can forgive her and probably not go no contact. But after today, I doubt I want anything to do with her. I also think she's the one who told all my ex-boyfriends that they're not good enough because they all broke up with me shortly after meeting her without any explanation. And I'm done with her. My grandpa told me he'll help me with the eviction and possibly a restraining order due to the threats. I am going to visit my dad as soon as she's out of the house. Definitely restraining order, and don't fall for her BS threats. I don't think she's entitled to any of your stuff anyway, but maybe talking to a lawyer would be a safe option. Seems like she's trying to manipulate you like she did your whole childhood about your pops. You got this. Thanks. And take your valuables and important documents, and anything else you are attached to out of the house until she's gone. And change the locks afterwards naturally, and get a security system. And cams that cover your parked car. This. Also be watching your credit history. Crappy parents often steal their children's identities, because, of course, they know all the details needed to do so. I'm so sorry this happened to you. I'm glad you found your father, and can get away from your mother who seems to be a very toxic person. I wish you all the happiness and hope you get some good lawyers to make sure you have your peace without you mother meddling with something that will mess anything up for you. Thanks. I wish I saw her toxicity earlier. It sounds like at least for the most part your mom may have done a better job of hiding who she was from you. But once the cat was out of the bag, so to speak, she decided to let her true nature display itself. I suspect if it wasn't over your dad, it would have been when you went against her wishes on pretty much anything else. A couple of suggestions. If you have anything of sentimental or actual value that is relatively small, as well as any important papers, you might want to consider moving them to a safety deposit box at a bank or somewhere else until your mother is out. Once she is out, get all the locks changed. If you don't already have one, consider getting a security system, with internal as well as external cameras, or at a minimum a video doorbell so you can see who is at your door. Not sure where you reside, but if in the US, I would suggest you contact all 3 credit bureaus and request a detailed credit report from each. At that time, I would also suggest you consider locking your credit, which prevents any new credit relying on credit checks to be opened in your name. It will not prevent any existing credit accounts from being used or increased, so anything that exists as an account that you didn't request you will at the very least need to close. And if any balance, consider reporting it as fraud so you aren't responsible for paying it. Reminder to keep all the information each credit bureau gives you for unlocking your credit also in a safe and secure location that your mother can't access. Glad things with meeting your father went well. Wish you the best in getting this all worked out so your mother is out of your house as considerably less involved in your life if not totally removed from it. Now for the last story. My dad's job ruined our relationship. Hi, I'm female 22 and my dad male 57 is a surgeon. I hate that. I never had a dad growing up. He was more like that friendly neighbor that comes over for dinner from time to time. My dad always put his job before his family. I don't blame him as he has a very important job and he's saving lives, but growing up, me and my siblings didn't have a dad. He was rarely home, he was never there for our biggest accomplishments, he never came to our games, school plays, birthdays, holidays. We barely saw him. We never blamed him for choosing to save a life instead of coming to our games, but it ruined any relationship we could have. We don't see him as a father figure because he was never one. Yes, we never worried about money. We went to the best schools. We always got what we wanted like toys, clothes, cars, etc., but that never filled the void of not having a real father. We never asked for these things, we asked for him. My younger sister 18 just got her driver's license, and dad didn't even know she wanted to drive. My older brother 29 became a dad 4 months ago. My dad didn't even know he was married when he's been married for 2 years. I got married 3 weeks ago. We've been dating for 8 years, and my dad still doesn't know his name. I wanted my dad to give me away, but it was my father-in-law who did it instead. I even delayed the wedding waiting and hoping my dad would show up. He didn't. He just sent a text the next day about staying late with some guy because he didn't want to be alone, and my dad felt that it was his job to be there for him. That's when I finally realized we will never come first. His job will always be more important than any of us. My dad is not a bad man and he's a great surgeon, but his job got in the way, and I'm honestly done trying. Missing my wedding was the last straw. I'm done with him. He never made an effort to be in our lives. My mom worked too. She's the CEO of a big company, and she obviously has a lot of responsibilities, but she made time. She was there for birthdays and holidays. She came to our school events. Not all, but she came to a lot of them. She drove my brother to college when he left, and then she did the same for me. She taught all of us how to drive. She always made breakfast and dinner for us and never let us help her. She would say something like, "You're my kids and I'm doing this for you. I want to make something nice for you. If you help, then it wouldn't be me who did it." My mom was always my dad because he couldn't be. I'm tired of people making excuses for him. My extended family, my friends, basically anyone that knows, just says that my dad is a hero and I need to cut him some slack. It's always he's tired, he had a long day, he's saving lives, he's busy, and I'm sick of these excuses. He missed my wedding from a crappy reason in my opinion. He wasn't saving a life, he was holding a hand, while I was sitting in my dress crying and considering canceling the wedding so my dad could be there. Thank you for reading this. I really needed to vent. What country are you from? One of the jokes we say about neurosurgeons is, how do you hide $5 from a neurosurgeon? Tape it to his kid's forehead. All in all, to some extent, he chose to be absent. Of course you're hurting. Surgeons do work terrible hours, but I know several that are capable of having families. It is a strain and it is hard, especially during residency. But the fact that he didn't know your brother was married, that's next level. Priorities. And also, even a friendly neighbor of 20 years would know you're married and who that person is. Priorities. I was shadowing a physician last year and I usually ask what's their best advice for aspiring physicians. This one guy can't even remember his specialty, but he was like 60 or 70. He said his best advice was to remember that medicine is just a job. It's no different from any other job out there, and he wished he made that realization sooner. I asked why, and he said he regrets the time he spent choosing work over time he could have had with his daughters. I'm so sorry. I'm pretty sure that guy would be horrified that your dad held his hand instead of going to your wedding. You are lucky you have a wonderful mom who made up for it. Maybe one day when he retires or gets sick, he'll reorient his priorities and realize what he's missed out on. The sad thing is he won't even notice you've given up on him. I'm going to put this bluntly because I believe you know the answer. Your dad chose to do this. There are tons of options for increasing a work-life balance as a physician, but your dad chose not to for whatever reason, be it the narcissistic belief that he's not replaceable, the ego he gets from doing this, or just not being able to form real-life relationships. My father did the same thing, just with computer engineering. He would often sleep in his office, or come home after I was asleep and before I woke. He never checked on me when he came home. As much as these hurts, it is not a reflection of you or your siblings. He made his choice and you don't have to have contact with him at all. Therapy and time have helped me heal and fix the pattern. I hope it can for you too. You deserve better. Yes, I know 2 surgeons who are very involved in their children's lives. The job can consume you if you let it, but it doesn't have to. I always felt a little guilty that my surgeon canceled his family's vacation in the way to the airport because they finally found a heart for me when I was 12. My mom and aunts took 2 weeks to prepare a huge feast for the entire hospital as a thank you. The Cleveland Clinic is huge, and doctors, nurses, and families from every building on the campus heard about the thank you dinner, and they all came. It took a lot of people to just get all the food inside. Hey there, it's your boy Foxy, back for more relationship stories. Update. I'm feeling a lot of anger about this child of my wife's affair that I've been talked into being a father figure for. Original post. This post is about me, male 39, my ex-wife female 39, our 2 sons 7 and 9, and the affair my ex-wife had that resulted in the end of our marriage, as well as a 3rd child we'll call Max 5 male. I've been thinking about posting something like this for a few days. I have to admit that reading a recent similar post is the thing that's pushed me to sit down and try to type this out. I think that what I want to talk about is parenting stuff, but I'm going to start by talking about the affair and dissolution of our relationship. My wife confessed to the affair about a week after telling me she was pregnant. So, a week I'd spent excited about what I thought was going to be my child. Turns out, no. It was an emotionally pretty traumatic time. I might have been able to work through the infidelity, but made the ultimatum that she had to end the pregnancy. She was philosophically opposed to abortion, and I knew this. She stuck to her morals in that particular instance, and so I initiated a divorce. She has since married her affair partner. Regarding custody of our sons, there was a period of more conflict and resistance. I took the boys in the initial period of Max's infancy, and in the initial highly emotionally injured state I was in, I sought full permanent custody. But I wasn't likely to be successful, and I was eventually persuaded that despite the breakdown of my relationship with her, that it's in my sons' best interests to have their mother in their lives. Today, to the amazement of everyone else in my life, my ex and I remain cooperating partners in the parenthood of our children. For the last 2 years, we've shared week-to-week custody of our 2 sons. This upcoming school year, Max is going to be old enough to attend the same school, and about a month ago, I got sat down by my ex, her partner, and all 3 boys, and said they all want Max to travel back and forth with the boys each week, and effectively live with me 50% of the time. Seriously. There are some arguments for it, admittedly. The 3 boys are friends and brothers as much as I resent it, so splitting them up regularly does seem like a weird sibling dynamic that could have poor consequences. I'm angry with my ex for broaching the topic with the boys before me, but it's also an entirely reasonable thing for the boys to have an opinion on. I agreed, because what was I supposed to say? No. Why not? I can't say, because I hate that Max exists. So, I said okay. I do hate him. I know he doesn't deserve to be hated. I know he's no more responsible for the circumstances of his conception than any of us. But knowing that doesn't seem to matter. He's a walking, talking reminder of all the worst emotions that I've ever felt. I'm coming to end of his 2nd week staying with us, and the boys, we have moved him into my home and made space for him. I hate the sound of his voice. If he needs help in the kitchen, I am immediately annoyed with no good reason. I'm constantly angered by his limitations that are entirely in line with being a 5-year-old, things I would never get angry with my sons over. I'm short-tempered and just energized with this useless visceral anger. I feel like the last years of my life have been a carousel of humiliations and degradations. The only way I've been able to keep everything together is constantly repeating to myself that pragmatic argument that no matter how authentic my grievances are, and no matter how justified I am in my anger, it doesn't help me or my sons for me to devolve into an embittered rage hermit. Just hold my tongue, breath deep, and force myself to do the thing that will actually help. So I remain in regular contact with their mother, and I talk to her politely on the topics that I have to. Since recognizing that I don't have the legal power to exclude him from my sons' lives, I have been cordial with Max's father. That I've been able to do these things has been the only thing about myself worth feeling good about. But maybe it's not worth feeling good about. Maybe I regret being civil. Because in Max's presence, that pragmatic argument is just not enough. It's like all the anger I've set aside through sheer force of will returns at once and possesses me while I have to talk to him. I thought I was doing the right thing, but if I had remained combative and negative, I never would have ended up in this position. What do I do? I'm constantly thinking I want to back out, to say no, I can't do this, I'm sorry. But how could I justify that? No one else in the situation will be happy with that. The boys certainly don't understand why there would be a reason for them to be treated differently based on their parentage. My oldest has told me so explicitly, in a moment that made me feel both proud of him and ashamed of my own anger. Their mother and her partner would be upset. Part of me doesn't care and bitterly assumes they're just trying to get some free time for themselves out of this, but I'm trying not to dwell on that. My ex makes good arguments that this is in the best interests of all of the children, but part of me just remembers how long she lied to me and how totally I trusted her in that time. It seems like the only thing to do is the same thing I've ever done, suck it up and get over myself and my anger. But if I do that, then I have to actually do that. Even if I'm being a responsible babysitter for Max right now, he deserves to live in a home where he is loved, not merely tolerated. Can I do that? Maybe I can't do that. I'm scared of a path forward where I can't work up the nerve to back out of this arrangement and consign myself to getting over it. And then I actually don't get over it, but rather dwell ever angrier with how my life has turned out and take it out on the undeserving around me. Now for the top advice before reading the update. Are they paying you for babysitting every other week so they can mess all around the child-free house? You have a responsibility to provide for your children, but Max is theirs, and it's supremely messed up for them to do this to you. They are both preying on your weakness to capitalize on free childcare. I can guarantee you that spending 50% of his time with a person who hates him will do worse to Max than having to stay home with his parents while his brothers stay with their father. Yes, the arrangement includes them regularly paying me a substantial and reasonable amount. We've been sharing most childcare expenses already. Your ex is asking too much of you. You need to find a way to end this arrangement, or at least take a break from it while you work through your emotions and figure out how best to move forward. It sounds like you never fully recovered from what your ex did. You should consider counseling or a psychologist for yourself. Max has done nothing wrong. He's a child. However, the circumstances of his arrival in this world ruined your life as you knew it. Having him around is a constant reminder of how your life was impacted. Now your ex is making you accommodate the results of her actions so that she can have her ideal family situation. No, you should not be trying to accommodate her. Your concern should be for your sons only. She needs to handle this herself. It sounds like you never fully recovered from what your ex did. Tell me about it, man. I just said in another comment that I wish I could go no contact with her. It's like despite all of anger and hurt, I've not actually gotten over her, and now I just have to regularly interact with her and watch her be happy, and it just really sucks. They use the kids to get their way. They want a child-free house half the time. Who the heck wouldn't? They took you for an idiot and you proved them right. I'd be angry too. You are under no obligation to raise a kid that is not yours. Your kids will understand and be okay. Tell your ex-wife to go screw herself and deal with this other kid that's not yours. Jesus, grow some balls, man. No disrespect, just telling you what you need to hear. You're a good dude. Too good for your own good. And now for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a few weeks since you heard from me. I guess I'm kind of in a spot to update now. So, my post got a lot of feedback, and it was pretty much unanimous. I heard from lots of people, parents and sons and daughters in blended families, people who'd been cheated on themselves, people who were Max in their own families, and you all told me what I should have been able to admit myself, that this was not normal, that no one had ever heard of an arrangement like this. So I resolved to end the arrangement, and met with my ex-wife and her partner to tell them a few days after I posted, midway through their custody week. Many people advised me to speak to my boys about it first like my ex did to me, but I wanted to deliver the message before having to take Max again. I was thinking that it might be better to instead call them out on that behavior and try to get them to agree not to include the boys in that level of discussion before me, and then we could all sit down with the boys. The meeting did not go well. They were both pretty mad at me. I had tried to prepare for it to be uncomfortable. I told myself just to be polite and firm, that I didn't owe them an explanation beyond "I'm sorry, it's not working out." I guess he had made some career move based on this schedule that I was messing up. In hindsight, I do feel sort of responsible for that frustration, in that I regret agreeing to this arrangement in the first place, but in the moment, I really was not giving a damn about this man's work-life balance. Then, he said something about how I wasn't being fair, that they just wanted a fair custody arrangement. That made me very mad. Thinking about this all to type it out has my heart hammering. I have some different opinions on fairness. I said some pretty crappy, regrettable things to both of them, and then we were all screaming at each other for a while, and then I stormed out and I didn't talk to the boys. I didn't get to talk to my boys for several days until handoff. They immediately were asking about why Max wasn't with them, and I prepared for it, held a more serious talk with them than I had up to this point. I talked about how it's great that they enjoy spending time with Max, but that I'm their father, and that Max has his own father to spend time with. I also talked about how this whole spectacle of our lives is difficult for me, that I don't like having to spend only every other week with them, that their mother's decision to start another family with Max's father and Max still makes me sad. This is pretty awfully difficult stuff to talk about. I've been pretty strict with myself about not venting to my sons about their mother up until now, but effectively that's meant I haven't really talked about her or our breakup at all. If you can't say anything nice, as they say. Trying to maintain that respect for their mother and also talk frankly about my own feelings is a difficult tightrope balance. I don't want to blame their mother, but I also don't want to not blame their mother, if you know what I mean. This would be one of the situations I identify as unfair, where the responsible thing is to never say anything disparaging or poisonous to my sons about their mother, my ex, but that means I have to describe the current state of affairs and what has happened to get here in a way that isn't disparaging to their mother and act like this is normal. She decided. I think I actually did a good job navigating the conversation. My sons absorbed it easier than I expected. A few weeks later, and things with them are basically normal. I have had a few short conversations with my ex since our big embarrassing blow up. I sort of feel like I want her to apologize for this whole thing, but also know that I'm not doing myself any favors waiting for that to happen. I think she remains upset with me, more for the things I said than the rejection of this arrangement with Max. Or maybe that's just projection, because that's what I feel guilty for. I also regret that the last time I spoke to Max was dropping him off before ending the arrangement. I don't know, I guess his mom has explained to him that she missed him too much to have him gone each week, but I don't know how sturdy that story will be. Rereading my last post has me feeling pretty shameful of how I talked about Max. I know he doesn't deserve my sustained ire, and that he's not going anywhere, so I'll have to be able to adjust to his presence. I'm obviously holding on to a lot of anger that is really about my ex-wife, but she isn't obligated to give a damn about that, and I am obligated to interact with her politely. So I guess that anger just got set aside and then vented onto Max, just because he was there in my face, but that was my own fault. So I sort of expect things will pretty much return to normal from here. Contact with my ex is curt right now, but that'll loosen up. Thanks to almost everyone who commented or reached out to me. OP's ex and her husband are shameless. It's not OP's problem that this supposedly messes up the affair partner's new work situation, though I question that assertion. They're already paying OP, so why can't they pay someone else? I think they just really liked having a child-free week every other week, but boo-hoo. Not OP's problem. Maybe affair partner can just explain to his boss that his wife's ex-husband changed his mind about raising the affair baby that broke up his marriage, and now affair partner can't fulfill that new role anymore. I'm sure that will go over just fine. Honestly, this guy did the best he could. Having his ex's affair baby around him would have just led to suffering. The unbelievable gall of those people to even ask that of her ex and to put Max into that situation. Just shocking. It sounds like OP has a history of not standing up for himself, and we know how the worst offenders get when their whipping boy or girl learns how to say no. Just picture the audacity of the ex and her new husband, getting angry that OP won't do their bidding. What a pair of idiots. And the worst part is that, even though OP finally put his foot down in this scenario, he feels guilty for having very normal and reasonable boundaries. He's feeling guilty that he messed up the affair partner's work schedule. Gee, I'll bet that guy doesn't feel an ounce of regret at breaking up OP's marriage. I hope OP finds therapy, because I really think he needs help working through his emotions and figuring out why he doesn't feel like his instincts or boundaries matter. Last story. I, 28 male, am caught between my wife, 33 female, and mom, 42 female, on grandchild access. My wife and I have been married for 2 years and are expecting our first child in August. Mom's age is not a typo. She had a very difficult childhood and had me when she was 14. My wife and mom have always had a polite, but somewhat distant relationship since they were introduced. Although I wish they had a warmer relationship, I understand that not all in-laws become close and didn't want to force anything, especially as we live about 1,000 miles from mom and I am still able to have my own relationship with her. I assume that the main issue is that my wife and mom are fairly close in age, which made things a bit awkward. My wife had previously just said that they didn't click or that she felt awkward around my mom. Despite having me so young, my mom has been a wonderful parent. I know that my origins are unfortunately the result of a violation from an older person, but that when she was pregnant, a friend's parents took us in, which allowed her to finish high school and then attend college. Once she finished college, she was able to get a good job as a financial analyst, and we moved to our own place, and then she was just like any other mom if a bit younger. Our home was always warm and loving. I provide this as background info to confirm that my mom did not engage in any toxic or hurtful behavior. The one issue my mom had was that, because she was focused on trying to figure out how to support and raise me, she did not really deal with the effects of the ordeal she suffered. She did not use substances, but did develop a food addiction and became super morbidly obese, about close to 500 pounds by the time she was in her mid-30s. I was in college by this time. When I was a kid, she gradually got heavier, but I don't remember that it negatively impacted my childhood. Her addiction was more of a private thing, and she did cook healthy, balanced meals and encouraged me to stay active and play sports. I did not and have never had a weight problem myself. When she hit her high weight, Mom realized she needed help and finally got the therapy needed to address her trauma. She lost 200 plus pounds over the next couple years and has gradually lost more weight since then, and even took up hiking and walking marathons. Now she is about 225 pounds, which is still obese but not morbidly so. She is 5 feet 10 inches, which means she is technically about 50 pounds overweight, but her medical and therapy team thinks she is in a great place from where she has been. Meanwhile, my wife is pretty anti-fat because her father was overweight and died of a heart attack when she was 12. And now that my wife is pregnant, she is saying she does not want our child to have any relationship with my mom unless my mom loses weight down to a BMI of 25 or less. She says that if something happens to my mom because of her weight, it will be too traumatic, plus she is worried our child will be exposed to an unhealthy lifestyle. I understand my wife's fears, but I think this is very unfair to my mom because 1. My mom's medical team doesn't recommend additional weight loss, and especially would not recommend trying to crash diet and lose 50 pounds in 6 to 7 months to meet my wife's requirement. And 2. My mom does maintain a healthy and active lifestyle as evidenced by her 275-pound weight loss that she has maintained for some years now. My wife isn't budging though, and I don't want to put stress on her and argue with her while she is pregnant as she is having a horrible time with morning sickness. But I know my mom will be heartbroken if she doesn't get to have a relationship with her grandchild. How should I sort this out? Now for the advice. Your wife needs therapy. Banning a relationship with your mom until she's at what your wife considers the correct BMI is just crazy. Yeah, your wife is going to give your kid really unhealthy food issues. Not just for the sake of your mom, but also for the sake of your kid. Your wife's issues need to be addressed. I would agree with this. In my amateur opinion, I would say that the pregnancy has brought back her own unresolved trauma about losing her dad so young, and she is projecting that onto my mom. However, it's an unfair comparison as the situations aren't the same, as my mom has taken steps to address her weight and is working with medical and mental health professionals to do so. Plus, from what my wife has said, her dad was also a 3-pack-a-day smoker, which likely contributed to the heart attack more than weight itself.